What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! I'm super pumped to have the honors to introduce our next guest of the Halftime Snacks. She is a sports industry veteran with experience on both sides of the media equation, both as a communications professional and as a member of the media. Her background is super cool and unique. She worked in communications for the Major League Baseball and as a network reporter for the Orlando Magic. Besides that, she has collaborated with a variety of organizations and athletes at the professional, Olympic, and collegiate levels. Today, she's the CEO and founder of Mile 44, a company that is pushing the boundaries of creativity by developing high-end quality content for global sports brands. This episode is about to go down with stories and discussions you never heard before. So, this is your last chance to pause this episode and go grab some of your favorite snacks. Ladies and gentlemen, Melinda, Travis.
Yo, thanks for that introduction. Wow, thanks Ramona for having me. It's fun and I appreciate you taking the time.
Melinda, welcome to the Halftime Snacks. It's great to finally have you. And I want to kick off our conversation with a quick fun icebreaker. And let's talk about this. You just came back from Isla Mujeres, and the icebreaker that I prepared for you is actually, what is the warmest place you ever traveled to for a vacation? If it's Isla Mujeres, you can say that, and then you have to say the second one. If it's not, then you just need to say what's the warmest place you ever traveled for a vacation.
Oh gosh, the warmest place I ever traveled by far was Dubai.
Okay, I wasn't expecting.
Hot.
How hot compared to Isla Mujeres? Just so that I get an idea.
I mean, it was hot. It was probably close to 120 Fahrenheit. Hot.
All right, I've never been there, but I hope I'll make it one day. You recommend it?
Oh yeah, I mean it was super fun. I mean, a long flight from LA, but I loved it. Very different, very unique, but a lot of fun. I compared it to Vegas, to be honest. It's like Vegas on steroids.
Melinda, I want to know what's really the meaning of Mile 44. Why that specific mile? Is there a story or a meaning behind it that you want to share with the audience today?
Okay, well, actually, this week is the 4-year anniversary of our rebrand. So, yeah, the story, like a lot of things in life, the name just kind of showed up, and something made us kind of pay attention and take hold of it. I think it was 2017. The company had originally started back in 2005. You know, I started my business as a sports PR agency, and over the years, we just started to shift away from comms and PR into content, and we needed a rebrand. So we were on a road trip to see a client in Arizona, and I threw out the idea to the team in the car, and I was like, hey, I think we need a new name. So we're on this dusty stretch of highway somewhere between LA and Tucson. And if anyone knows it, it's definitely not the most inspiring place on the planet, to come up with ideas. So my team's throwing out names, and I'm literally hating on all of them. And finally, Hannah Sprague, who's our VP of partnerships, says, hey, Travis, like, you hate all these ideas, but like, I don't see you coming up with anything epic. So I look around, I'm like, okay, well, what the hell do you expect me to come up with? I'm driving, we're in the middle of nowhere, and all I see is dust and, a few road signs, exit 35, mile 44. And then all of a sudden we just kind of stopped and we're like, hey. And then of course, we're in the car for another 5 hours. So, what do? You start Googling the names of things, right? So the meaning of things rather. And as we started this process, 44 turns out had a lot of significance for us. And, without going to the weeds of numerology, we found that it really, when it comes to business, is about building something bigger than yourself, which, for us, that's what we try to do. And, it just kind of stuck. So, at that time, and even now, we still don't know where we're going and where we're evolving as a business. So, we just wanted something that would give us the latitude to kind of evolve into whatever it is that we're going to be in the next, however many years. So that's the story.
let's wait and jump a little bit back before that moment, before you rebranded Mile 44. Let's go maybe a little bit back to your experience as in the media side of sports. You've been as a communications expert for MLB, and then network manager or network presenter reporter in the Magic. So kind of like how it works from both sides. Can you tell us a little bit about that, as how it really built you and how that made you you and took you then to figure out Mile 44 was the thing that you wanted to do? You didn't say how was it called before, but before Mile 44, how was it called? And then
Yeah,
yeah.
before Mile 44, we were pro sports communications. I mean, very original,
Mm-hmm.
but we were doing a lot of straight sports PR work as well as crisis management. So it was definitely more corporate and more formal and more structured, and it worked for back then. But to go back to your question, I did start out on the media side. I was a reporter. It was my very first job out of college, in the NBA. Super fortunate to get that opportunity. But I realized probably about 2 weeks in that I didn't like being a reporter. I didn't like being intrusive. I didn't like being on the other side. I could see how much the athletes hated dealing with the media. And, there's something about rolling up and you're the part of someone's day that they hate. So I always sort of gravitated toward the athlete side because, and this was a long time ago. I mean, athletes didn't have the resources they have now. They didn't have the platforms they have now. And I found they were very, what's the word? They weren't ready for the media. They didn't want to deal with the media. They didn't understand the power of the media, and they really didn't get any support. So a part of me always felt bad. It's like these guys are being thrown into the fire with no preparation. And then as soon as they say something wrong, they're thrown to the wolves and everyone freaks out. And I didn't like being on that side. So when I left, the Magic, I went to MLB, but then from then on, I really was on the agency side, working directly with athletes. So the PR practice, grew, and we did a lot of crisis management work. So when you're dealing with athletes in some of the worst times of their lives, you sit across the table from people that you've only read about. And when you sit down with them, you realize how wildly different they really are as people. And in that role, you're really trying to show people what you see, and who the real person is. And that was really sort of the art and science and sort of caring part of how you do crisis management well. And so it was a lot of learning the stories behind the stories. And I think all of that has kind of converged now in content because we take that expertise and just a few things. Again, just understanding who people really are at their core and how they really want to be portrayed, how wrong traditional media used to get them, why they hated it, because they weren't being understood. So I've always sort of had this empathy, I guess, for the athlete, and again, working with them in such hard times in their lives and getting to know them as people, it really just gave me an appreciation and wanted me to carry that through. So the stuff that we do now is very much focused on getting it right for the athlete. So while our clients are typically brands who activate athletes, athlete ambassadors or athletes who are getting involved, the brand is our client, but in a way the athlete is too, because if the athlete has a great experience, if they like the content that we're creating for them, they feel we're presenting them and depicting them in the most authentic, powerful way, they're going to have a great experience. They're going to want to keep doing it for the brand, and it's better for everyone. The old school way was not letting athletes control things or not giving them preparation. It's sort of feeding them, throwing them into the fire to see what they do, and then when they don't do it well, it's just not a level playing field. So I think when you allow them the room to sort of be themselves and allow them to redo things, or give them peace of mind that you are going to treat them in the best way possible and present them in a way, they appreciate that. And I think that's really sort of been one of the things that's made Mile 44 stand apart and do really well in this space.
Is there any other thing of the media side of sports that you can think about right now that you think is broken in terms of the system, and or maybe that it could be improved? I understand that the side of probably giving the athletes the platform to really tell their stories and and show who they really are is one. Is there any other thing, maybe more now on the corporate side, that you think that is broken or that it can really be improved?
Yeah, I think just touching on the last point a little bit to what you're saying now, Hope Solo is one of the athletes I work with a lot. And I would see so many times when I'd go with her to shoots, she'd read the script and be like, what? Like, they want me to do this? Like, I would never do this in a workout. I don't do this. So, again, letting them lead. I don't think a lot of times athletes are allowed to lead the content. And if it's about them, then they should. We're not the experts. They are. We're just trying to capture it as authentically as we can. So that's sort of one technical piece. But obviously, we're in the digital content creation space and on the brand side. So that's the lane that I guess I'll speak from. And first, I'll say there's a lot of really great content out there. Some people are doing some incredible things. But I think when it's not great, it points back to a couple of things that I think are I've seen over and over again. I think the biggest thing is that the people concepting and creating the content are not the consumers of the content. So more directly, if you want to resonate with Gen Z or the younger audience, Gen X, myself included, should not be leading and driving the creative. And, sure, someone like me who's worked in media for years, I have the sensibilities and the foundational strategy things about creativity and storytelling that don't change over time. And I do consider myself, to still be pretty cool and immersed in what's culturally relevant, but I don't live it. And I always tell my team this all the time. Most of them who are in the target consumer group, I'll give my input, but I'm not the target audience, and I'll never pretend to know more than you guys do about what's cool or what people want. So I think sort of giving way, the old guard needs to give way to that young generation of creatives, and I think sometimes that's not happening, especially in sports media. I think the second layer of that is diversity. In the wake of last year's wake up call, if you will, in diversity, you'd hear creative agencies saying things like, we're going to do better when it comes to hiring. We're going to make sure that our staff, better reflects the makeup of America. And, here in America, African Americans make up almost 14% of the population, Hispanic and Latinos, almost 19%. So it sounds like the right thing to do and say, right, hey, make sure you have a team that's aligned with those numbers. But if you're an agency or you're a media company trying to create culturally relevant content, that's not even close, because it's these communities who are driving culture, who are making the culture. So if only 30% of your staff is that, and that's not even close to what people even have these days, you can't possibly get it right. So will things get better? I hope so. And I don't think it's that hard. Well, let me take it back. It's not hard in the sense that it's available to everyone, but you have to be really intentional and go looking for it. Because what we found is the best, most diverse, crazy talented people, they don't come from the traditional sports pipelines. They're not showing up at industry networking events. They might not even have gone to college. They're not even on LinkedIn. So that process of finding people to be part of that, it has to be part of your strategy. And quite frankly, I don't think a lot of companies, especially the big ones, are equipped or maybe even know how to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I think that, just to summarize what you just said, which I think resonates with me a lot, and I think it's great points. First of all, is to know who you're speaking to, basically know your audience and know who that audience is, because if that audience doesn't really understand your content, means that you are not understanding your audience. So instead of saying, okay, let's put a message out there, PR, saying, yeah, we're ESPN, we're gonna step up the diversity XYZ, it doesn't really mean that then your content is going to be adapted for this new audience that you want to reach. So that's one side. And then also from another point of view, another perspective, is that these media companies, they also have an agenda. They're also owned by someone who eventually, it's a for-profit organization who eventually wants to make money, meaning that they will optimize for retweets, they're optimized for likes, how many reach, what was the reach. And so they're usually not optimizing for content, they're optimizing for reach, which is not the same. And it's kind of like what I want to talk to you about also for mile 44, like how important is the content. And but before we get to that, I want to really grasp the idea or understand the notion when you of the moment you found product market fit, meaning the content that you make with the people that you do it for, the audience that you want to deliver it to. What was the moment that you were like, ha, like the aha moment of this is what works, this is something that we need to replicate and find, even if it wasn't the first time, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to optimize your iterations, do it again and again until you find it. But I want to know, what was the like moment when it clicked for you?
I guess this is where I could pretend to say we were highly strategic or that we had this big vision, but I've just never been that way. It's not the way I've done things. And I just tend to follow the signs and pay attention to the people, the opportunities, the insights that strike me as worth paying attention to, and then believing there's something there that I have to keep sort of uncovering and taking further. So we obviously knew brands had huge content pipelines to feed, which is sort of how we made the pivot in the first place from comms, because clients were asking for it. But it really wasn't until the pandemic hit and the world shut down that we really got clear on the value proposition and what we were truly solving for. I think every business, well, I know every business that was dependent on live sports and live production, revenue disappeared overnight, but back in March of 2020. So our team sort of came together and decided that, we weren't going to shut down. We had nothing to shoot, but we knew that we needed to kind of take this opportunity to just get better as a team. So obviously in production, we can scale up or down to execute the jobs, but our core team at the start of the pandemic was 6, including me. And I tease them all, for better or worse, they're all young, single, and lived alone. So they made the decision to sort of quarantine together. And, we created, the bubble before there was a bubble, and really kept it airtight, stayed healthy, and again, just focused on getting better as a team, testing out new gear, sort of trying new things, staying creative, because, the pandemic, it really took a toll, and it was really important to keep everybody mentally healthy and just inspired in this crazy, unbelievable time. And then more importantly, use the time for business development. I'd see on LinkedIn so many things saying, it's in poor taste to reach out to people in the pandemic. And it's like, you know what? You can say that when you're sitting in a corporate job, but when you're building a company and you've got 5 people looking at you who want to know, are they going to be okay? I can't worry about that. We didn't stop. So, what better time to get people on the phone, right? When there's zero pressure of a conversation because they have no money to spend. There's no projects on the timeline. They've got nothing except time on their hands. And our VP of Business Development did that for about 9 months straight. Just 40 calls a week, building relationships and just saying, hey, we exist. There's definitely some overlap in our worlds. And when this crazy shit is over, we should know each other. So, within those conversations, not only did we build those relationships, but we got 9 months of intel, in terms of really understanding what brands want and what their biggest challenges are. What do they really need? What can we give them that no one else can? And the answer isn't content production. I mean, they need it and that's the end product, but people don't hire us because we can shoot and edit. They hire us because we problem solve for everything else. Because at this level, I mean, we live in LA. You can throw a rock and hit a production company and get really great content from so many people. But, they want a one-stop shop. They want people who get their business, the core business that they're in, and the people that they serve and sell to, come up with concepts that they can say yes to right away that are turnkey, and then have the ability to make it happen. As I said before, they want people who know how to work with A-list athletes. People who don't freak out when the athlete is 3 hours late and shoot time goes from 3 hours to 45 minutes. We've dealt with this over and over again. It's okay. We'll make it work. Or if we know the athlete is a full workout later in the day, we have to adapt our shoot to them. And again, I think that's just a skill set maybe we've taken for granted over all these years working with athletes, but it matters to brands. They want people who know how to shoot sports and are going to capture the authenticity of the athlete in the sport and do it in the best way. They want diverse teams. Maybe they're not as diverse as they want to be, but they can take an agency and some creatives that really fill that for them. And then they just want, they want a great experience for themselves, for their athletes. They want things quickly. So it kind of proved that if we double down on everything we're really good at, this is where we're going to be strong. So again, it wasn't this grand plan or this, hey, this is something that we can do. It's what are we really good at, and how do we sort of adapt it to this new world? And that's really, I mean, come January 2021, it's been crazy and it hasn't stopped.
I want to double click on the topic of creativity that you mentioned. Like, how do you keep yourself creative? I think that first, as your to your point, I feel like the pandemic really boosted people's creativity levels, and here's why. I think that when people were stranded at home, locked and with no resources or so much time in their hands, they had to figure out ways in they're gonna do things that they did before, but in new and adaptable ways for the pandemic. So I feel like the pandemic really boosted creativity in a way. Now, I want to know, you, of course, you've worked with a couple of creative talents from all over, even like content and even like athletes that they are also creative. I want to know if you have like a couple of ideas amongst what makes a creative talent. What are the ingredients that build up someone with that natural creative talent that you look for, at least?
Yeah, I guess creative talent is, like everything else, is pretty subjective. I think for Mile 44, it's pretty distinct. I think number one, you have to watch our stuff and feel something about it. You've got to understand our vibe, get it, and it has to resonate, right? It's fast, it's always moving, it's every cut is intentional. It's kind of all about exerting, as much hype as we can and making people just, want to get out and go do something after they watch our stuff. So you have to be about that first and grasp it. Like I said, we're not, a lot of sports content is very sort of, pulls that emotion out and that inspiration and motivation. And we're sort of about, I hope that our stuff inspires, but our goal is really to ignite whatever it is, whatever fire is inside you. When you watch our stuff, it's like you want to get up and go do something. So it's that sort of personality type that we're looking for. And people who aren't afraid to try new things. I think, especially here in LA, you get people who've done the same things over and over again. And, looking at a client, a project, an athlete, and saying, hey, this I want to try this, and having them be okay with that. If it doesn't work out the first time, we've got to do it over again. But I think for this environment, the biggest thing, which is maybe not a creative trait, but you have to be okay with understanding that marketing and creative are sometimes at odds. So sometimes what the client wants maybe isn't the best thing for the art, or maybe kills something that you really wanted. But you have to be okay with that. And I think some creatives are really, really married to their stuff, and it just doesn't work like that. We definitely will fight for things. Fight's probably the wrong word. We'll usually advise a client, like, here's the reason why we think it should stay this way, or here's another way of doing things, so that we don't sort of gut the thing that we did. But sometimes you just have to be okay with that and finding that middle ground where they're happy, but you can live with it. And some people just aren't. So those are probably the main things for us. But yeah, I think people who are just open, we definitely have people from the sports world on our team, but we also bring people in from music, from fashion, from film, because all of it's culture. And I think when you infuse all these different things into it, you just get a different product, and it's never the same.
Very interesting. Have you found any specific challenges from working with athletes? This one that you mentioned, that sometimes they come with the mindset that something should be as they want, but then you have a door in your mind open for which they don't, and so showing them that door might be a challenging thing. Is there any other challenges that you can share with us from having experience working with athletes from all different levels, from Olympic to collegiate and professional sports?
Yeah, honestly, I think working with athletes is probably the easiest part of it, because you kind of know what to expect. If you can get them in, you can get them out, you can be efficient, you can, you walk them through, you show them why they're doing things, you give them input on the front end. We always make sure that they see the shoot plan in advance, that they have input. Really important to do that. But honestly, I think it's more on the brand side, because look, there are marketing messages you have to get in. There are product shots you have to get in. This ultimately has to drive their business results. So yeah, is that close up of the shoe the best shot for this frame, maybe not, but it's what's needed. So just do it. But yeah, I think, we generally try to find that happy medium and look at it again on the front end, looking what has to be achieved, and then building the creative around that, so that we don't, no one on our team feels that they're compromising their creativity, and the client still gets what they need, and the overall goal is achieved. Because you're not making content for content's sake. There's definitely an end goal. And again, I think having that agency background and being able to understand what the client needs, we kind of thread that needle for our creatives so that they can get to the other side.
I think that's so valuable. I think you guys should really stop and go back 15 seconds. This is really key, Melinda. Knowing the strategy behind the content and knowing how to connect it. I've seen so many content creators that have no idea what they're doing. They're just creating by creating, and there's no thread behind it. So I guess that really solving that problem is one of the value propositions that you guys really are great to deliver. But let's talk about culture. This is probably the main topic I wanna get to, and I want to know, as you mentioned, you worked with people from film, from music, from fashion, from sports. So probably most of the things that build a culture. What ways do you think sports brands and sports themselves impact culture and society differently from other brands in, say, food or industry? Or what do you think is about sports?
That's a great question. Obviously, to me, sports is a reflection of culture and society, right? It captures everything about that human experience, our aspirations, our struggles, our loyalties, our traditions. Sports brands have the ability to move people, tapping into those things, move them to act, to feel, to believe in something. And so they are different, and they do have a lot more leverage in that regard than other brands do. I think to couple that, you watch all of it play out with these larger than life athletes whose influence is second to none, who again are the culture makers, the culture amplifiers. And because of that, we pay attention. We connect with that. Nike says that if you have a body, you are an athlete. And I think all of us can sort of gravitate toward that. So they do have the power to influence that the brands do. And I think a lot of them do it really well.
Yeah, I remember watching. I don't know if you've ever watched the Shop with LeBron James.
Of course.
In one of the episodes, he actually mentions how the way they dress before games might have an influence that they don't expect. Like, people are gonna start copying the way they dress for games just because they dress just for the game. So they are the ones putting in the example and really setting the culture. Do you think they know about this responsibility, or is it just a few that are maybe at the top of the popularity, LeBron and those ones? Do you think all of them know the power of their platforms and the power they have over culture, or is it something that you've seen that some don't really care and don't understand how this works and don't know how to build their brands and connect their brands to things which they believe in? Or what is your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've seen the evolution when athletes didn't have it at all, from athletes learning about it and maybe not leveraging it, to now it's just sort of natural. So it's very, very cool for me to see athletes owning their power and really being intentional about their careers, their decisions, what they do, how they're perceived, what pieces of them they bring to their spotlight. So, and I love that, because again, 20 years ago when I was with the Magic, they didn't have that opportunity, and they didn't have the ability to really, to put that onto the world. So yeah, I think it's pretty intentional. I think everything's converging, right? Sports, music, arts, fashion, it's there. And because we're getting to know athletes in a different way and in a very much more personal way, they're able to bring all those pieces of them, which sort of creates that whole brand. So I think they're intentional about it, as they should be, and I think it's a positive, and I love seeing how they're using this time in their lives to build for the future. I think before, an athlete would never talk about retirement. Like, you didn't bring it up. That was like, I'm not thinking about it. I'm an NBA player. This is what I'm doing now. Like, I will deal with that when the time comes. Whereas now it's almost, the brand's being built concurrently on day one. These athletes know where they're going. And now with the new legislation here with collegiate athletes now being able to get paid. That's happening even sooner. So yeah, I love it. And it's been really cool for me just to see how things have changed. And, it's great to see athletes owning what's available to them and being the ones to dictate what's good for them.
And what's next for Mile 44? Is there any plan that you have for the future?
Wow. Oh, so many. A trip back to Mexico first. No, you know what? Honestly, we haven't had a chance to breathe. This year's been crazy, and yeah, I'm looking forward to just Q4, just sort of assessing everything we've done and really being a little more intentional about what we do next year. I mean, we're so lucky. We're working with some of the most incredible brands on the planet right now, and we've been really lucky that, again, we were able to sort of leverage COVID and get better. And I know that wasn't the case for a lot of people. So super grateful for that. But no, I think we just, we want to experiment with new things too. We want to take what we've done and build on it. And I think we're excited to be starting this year with the foundation that we built this year, and just so much more of an understanding of what we can do. It's a pretty cool time for us.
Yeah, but I also think that since you understand how really the media industry works, and especially related to sports, you are able to you're now 3 steps ahead of them. So as long as you can keep up with that advantage of knowing, where the value is and how to provide value for both the brands and the athletes and making both of them happy, you're always going to be moving forward. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Melinda. This has been great. I can't live without asking you a more personal question, and I want to know what are maybe 2 or 3 things that you do to increase serendipity in your life. Is there any action that you take or any habit that you formed, or 1 or 2 or 3 that you can share with us to increase serendipity?
I mean, honestly, I'm such a big believer in that. And honestly, if I look, I think Steve Jobs said it, when you look back on your life, you can clearly see the dots connecting. And yeah, I think just that belief, we always joke around here. I always say, especially, when COVID hit and we always had hope. And someone said to me, hope's not a business strategy. I'm like, belief is a business strategy. And I always believe that things will happen because they always have. And I think, again, if you pay attention to those, to the things, that warrant your attention, and you notice interesting people and opportunities and things coming in, and you capitalize on those, or you just at least explore them, that to me sort of creates the opportunities. Whenever we've been at that crossroads or we're not really sure what's next, it really is that intentional thought and just being clear about what you want and why you want it, and letting the how sort of reveal itself to you. So we definitely talk about that a lot here, and everything that's happened to us and the way the company over the years has been built, none of it could have been planned. So I think just not trying to control things so much, and again, just being very clear about what we do, why we do it, and continuing to just be authentic, to ourselves. And we have our sort of mantra here is, gonna do it anyway, because there's so many times where we just know what is right for us, despite what other people would tell us is reasonable or rational. And again, I think when you believe in what you're doing and why you do it so much, and you've got the people around you who also support that, things always work out, and you just have to keep moving forward.
That's amazing, Melinda. It's so inspiring to really listen to your words and everything that you think and do. It's fascinating. I appreciate that. Appreciate you coming to the Halftime Snacks. That's been a wonderful time with you, chatting, learning from everything you're doing and building. Can't wait to see where this is gonna go in the next 5-10 years. I'm looking forward, and anytime, you're always welcome to the Halftime Snacks, Melinda. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.